Hello and welcome. It looks like we have something going on here now. And as some of you may or may not know, I do have a hearing and I have to go down there. I will be right there at the same courthouse. But I do want to watch and hear the opening statements. Hopefully my hearing won't be long. It's one of those that could be done in 30 seconds. And, or, they just texted me. So, welcome, and I am going to probably have to bail on you, but talk amongst yourselves. Don't miss me too much. But there will be a prize for whoever misses me the most. Maybe something from my Amazon. But let's watch. This really should be good. I will tell you, Bob Draskevich, the defendant's attorney, is very, very well respected amongst his peers. And I think it's Pam Weckersley, and it's like Chris. Chris. What's Chris's last name? No. Why am I blanking on his last name? Sorry. Anyway, Pam Weckersley is the lead for the defense. She does all the gnarly murder trial, high-profile cases. So she's also very well respected. Obviously, you don't get to be in that position by being not being good. So it looks like they're going to bring the jury in, and I'm going to have to bail right as it's getting good, but I'll be back. And like I said, maybe there'll be a prize for whoever misses me the most. So there you go.
Please remain standing.
Got their job. It wasn't even supposed to be today. So I'll be back.
Does the state stipulate to the presence of the panel?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Draskevich?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, if you'll please raise your right hand so the clerk can administer the oath.
You and each of you do solemnly swear that you will well and truly try the case at issue and a true verdict render according to the evidence. So help you God?
Yes.
You may be seated.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are admonished that no juror may declare to a fellow juror any fact related to this case of his or her own knowledge, and if any juror discovers during the trial or after the jury's retired that he or she or any other juror has personal knowledge of any fact in controversy in this case, he or she shall disclose the situation to myself in the absence of the other jurors. This means that if you learn during the course of this trial that you are acquainted with the facts of this case or the witnesses and you've not previously told me of this relationship, you must then declare that fact to me. Again, I want to remind you that you communicate to the court either in the courtroom in the presence of both sides or through Officer Hawks. And we're going to be together for the next couple of weeks, so we will inevitably see you in the hallway, in the elevators, and maybe even coming in and out of the courthouse. Please do not be offended should we not acknowledge you. We're all just maintaining our ethical obligation to maintain the integrity of the jury system. So outside the courtroom, it's only Officer Hawks that's permitted to have any communication with you. What I will now say is intended to serve as an introduction to the trial of this case. It is not a substitute for the detailed instructions on the law, which I will give you at the close of the case and before you retire to consider your verdict. This is a criminal case commenced by the state of Nevada, which I may sometimes refer to as the state, against the defendant, Mr. Tellis. The case is based on an indictment. The clerk will now read the indictment to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury and state the plea of the defendant to that indictment.
District Court, Clark County, Nevada, the state of Nevada, plaintiff versus Robert Tellis, defendant. Case number C-368-935, Department number 12, indictment. State of Nevada, County of Clark, the defendant above named Robert Tellis, accused by the Clark County grand jury of the crime of murder with use of a deadly weapon, victim 60 years of age or older, felony, committed at and within the County of Clark, State of Nevada, on or about the 2nd day of September 2022 as follows. Did willfully and lawfully with malice aforethought kill Jeffrey Gehrman, who is 60 years of age or older, with use of a deadly weapon, to wit, a knife, by stabbing the said Jeffrey Gehrman multiple times about the body, the said killing having been 1, willful, deliberate, and premeditated, and or 2, perpetrated by lying in wait for the said Jeffrey Gehrman, and or 3, perpetrated by abuse of an older person, dated this 19th day of October 2022, Stephen B. Wilson, Clark County District Attorney, signed by Pamela Weckerly, Chief Deputy District Attorney, to which the defendant has pled not guilty.
Thank you. This case is based on the indictment, which has just been read to you by the clerk of the court. You should distinctly understand that the indictment is simply a charge and that it is not in any sense evidence of the allegations it contains. The defendant has entered a plea of not guilty to the indictment. The state therefore has a burden of proving each of the elements as alleged in their charging document by proof beyond a reasonable doubt. As the defendant sits here today, he is presumed innocent. The purpose of this trial is to determine whether the state of Nevada will meet their burden of proof. It is your primary responsibility as jurors to find and determine the facts. Under our system of criminal procedure, you are the sole judge of the facts. You are to determine the facts from the testimony you hear and the other evidence, including exhibits introduced in court. It is up to you to determine the inferences which you feel may be properly drawn from the evidence. The parties may sometimes present objections to some of the testimony or other evidence. It is the duty of a lawyer to object to evidence which he or she believes may not properly be offered, and you should not be prejudiced in any way against a lawyer, who makes objections on behalf of the party he or she represents. At times, I may sustain objections or direct that you disregard certain testimony or exhibits. You must not consider any evidence to which an objection has been sustained or which I have instructed you to disregard. Anything you may have seen or heard outside the courtroom is not evidence and must also be disregarded. Remember, statements, arguments, and opinions of counsel are not evidence in the case. However, if the attorneys stipulate as to the existence of a fact, you must accept the stipulation as evidence and regard that fact as proved. You must not speculate to be true any insinuation suggested by a question asked a witness. A question is not evidence and may be considered only as it supplies meaning to the answer. You must not be influenced in any degree by any personal feeling of sympathy for or prejudice against the state or the defendant. Both sides are entitled to the same fair and impartial consideration. In considering the weight and value of the testimony of any witness, you may take into consideration the appearance, attitude, and behavior of the witness, the interest of the witness in the outcome of the case, if any, the relation of the witness to the defendant or to the state, the inclination of the witness to speak truthfully or not, and the probability or improbability of the witness's statements, and all of the facts and circumstances in evidence. Thus you may give the testimony of any witness just such weight and value as you believe the testimony of the witness is entitled to receive. There are two kinds of evidence, direct and circumstantial. Direct evidence is testimony by a witness about what that witness personally saw or heard or did. Circumstantial evidence is testimony or exhibits which are proof of a particular fact from which if proven, you may infer the existence of a second fact. You may consider both direct and circumstantial evidence in deciding this case. The law permits you to give equal weight to both, but it is for you to decide how much weight to give to any evidence. Opening statements and closing arguments of the attorneys are intended to help you in understanding the evidence and applying the law, but they are not evidence. No statement, ruling, remark, or comment which I make during the course of this trial is intended to indicate my opinion as to how you should decide the case or to influence you in any way in your determination of the facts. At times, I may even ask questions of witnesses. If I do so, it is for the purpose of bringing out matters which I feel should be brought out and not in any way to indicate my opinion about the facts or to indicate the weight I feel you should give to the testimony of the witness. I may also find it necessary to admonish the attorneys, and if I do, you should not show prejudice against a lawyer or his or her client because I have found it necessary to admonish him or her. Until the case is submitted to you, you must not discuss it with anyone, even with your fellow jurors. After it is submitted to you, you must discuss it only in the jury room with your fellow jurors. It is important that you keep an open mind and not decide any issue in the case until the entire case has been submitted to you under instructions from the court. The trial will proceed in the following manner. The Deputy District Attorney will make an opening statement, which is an outline to help you understand what the state expects to prove. Next, the defendant's attorney may, but is not required to make an opening statement. Opening statement serves as an introduction to the evidence which the party making the statement intends to prove. The state will then present its evidence, and counsel for the defendant may cross-examine the witnesses. Following the state's case, the defendant may present evidence, and the Deputy District Attorney may cross-examine the witnesses. However, as I have said, the defendant is not obligated to present any evidence. After all of the evidence has been presented, I will instruct you on the law. After the instructions on the law have been read to you, each side will have the opportunity to present oral argument. What is said in closing argument is not evidence. The arguments are designed to summarize and interpret the evidence. Since the state has a burden of proving the defendant guilty by proof beyond a reasonable doubt, the state has the right to open and close the arguments. After the arguments have been completed, you will then retire to deliberate upon your verdict. Again, let me remind you that until the case is submitted to you, do not talk to each other about it, about anyone who has anything to do with it, until the end of the case when you go to the jury room to decide upon your verdict. Do not talk with anyone else about this case or about anyone who has anything to do with it until the trial has ended and you have been discharged as jurors. Anyone else includes members of your family and your friends. You may tell them that you are a juror in a criminal case, but don't tell them anything else about it until after you've been discharged by the court. Do not let anyone talk to you about the case or about anyone who has anything to do with it. If someone should try to talk to you, please report that to me immediately by contacting the court marshal. Do not read any news stories or articles or listen to any radio or television reports about the case or about anyone who has anything to do with it. As jurors, you will be given the opportunity to ask written questions of the witnesses called to testify in this case. You are not encouraged to ask large numbers of questions because that is the primary responsibility of counsel. Questions may be asked, but only in the following manner. After both lawyers have finished questioning the witness, and only at this time, if there are additional questions you would like to ask the witness, you may then seek permission to ask that witness a written question. Should you desire to ask a question, write your question down with your juror number on a full sheet of clean paper and raise your hand. All questions from jurors must be factual in nature and designed to clarify information already presented. In addition, jurors must not place undue weight on the responses to their questions. The court marshal will pick up your question and present it to the court. All questions must be directed to the witness and not to the lawyers or to the court. After consulting with counsel, I would then determine if your question is legally proper. If I determine that your question may properly be asked, I will ask the question. No adverse inference should be drawn if the court does not allow a particular question. I do follow that procedure pretty strictly, so you'll know when it's your opportunity to ask written questions. When the witness is done being questioned by both sides, I'm going to turn to the witness. I'm going to thank them for being here, and I'm going to excuse them from their subpoena. If you want to ask a written question, just please get my attention. I will have the witness stay here until you have an opportunity to write your question down and present it to the court. What I don't do is after I do excuse a witness from their subpoena, I will not require them to come back to the courthouse to answer a written question by a juror. So just please get my attention before I do excuse that juror if you do have a written question. Also, you have been, when you came in, there were notebooks on your chairs. Those are your notebooks. They must remain in the courtroom at all times until you go back to deliberate upon your verdict. In the front, there's a pocket that you can open up. There's a sheet of paper, and that just gives you information about where you are and phone numbers in case you have any type of emergency when we're out of session. You can take that piece of paper with you when you leave. Everything else must stay in the courtroom at all times. The instructions I had given you are in there. The admonishment that I'm required to give you every time we take a recess is in there as well. And if you need to refer to the procedure to ask written questions, that is in there as well. Also, at the very end, there should be some paper there for you to take notes. You're not required to take notes, but you may take notes. When you go back to deliberate upon your verdict, you will not have a transcript. So it will be your memories collectively, and any notes that you have taken, you'll be able to share those and refer to those during your deliberations. At the end of the day, the court marshal is under court order to collect those notebooks. He puts them in a safe place. I assure you, I will not let anyone have access to those notebooks. They will be kept strictly confidential. Your notes will be kept confidential. And when you come in the next morning, your notebooks will be on your chairs waiting for you. At this time, the state of Nevada may address the jury panel in their opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. All day long on September the 2nd of 2022, Roy and Holly Bailey were concerned about their neighbor across the street. He was a man by the name of Jeffrey Gehrman. The Baileys and Gehrman had been neighbors for over 20 years, so they had come to know each other's habits. And on the 2nd of September of 2022, the Baileys noticed that Mr. Gehrman's garage door was open and his car was parked in his garage, and that was unusual. They called him, they texted him all day on the 2nd of September, and they didn't get a response. Finally, on the evening of the 2nd, Mr. Bailey went over and just shut the garage for Jeff just to protect his house. But at that time, they still hadn't received any response from their calls or texts. On September the 3rd, still having no response, Roy Bailey walked over to Jeff Gehrman's house and was trying to check on him. He found his neighbor, Jeff Gehrman, on the side of his house. Mr. Gehrman was over 60 years old at the time, and so initially it was thought that maybe he had had a medical episode. Soon after, though, it was discovered that he had been murdered. Mr. Gehrman had sharp force injuries to multiple parts of his body, all over. He also, when they found him on September the 3rd, had signs of decomposition, indicating that he had not been killed on the 3rd, but was killed earlier. Investigators assessed the crime scene and took note of several things. One of the things they took note of was that Mr. Gehrman's phone was in his pocket. His car keys were in his pocket as well. His wallet with money was on his person as well, suggesting to investigators that robbery was not a motive in this case. Investigators looked around the surrounding area of where Mr. Gehrman was found, and they noticed damage to the bushes in the area of where the body was. They looked closer and actually saw blood on some of the bushes in the area by Mr. Gehrman's body. And they noticed it on some of the outdoor decorations as well. And they took note of that in their investigation. There appeared to be blood on some of those items. Detectives and crime scene analysts looked inside Mr. Gehrman's house as well. Inside the house, there was no sign of forced entry. There was no sign of struggle. All of his valuables were present inside the house. Oops, let me back up just a little bit. Can I sit for its indulgence?
Sure. Yeah, of course.
get 5 minutes to see if we can get the thing queued up. It's not responding.
I got it's under 40, he's my kid.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. As I was saying, detectives and investigators checked the inside of Mr. Gehrman's house. There was no sign of forced entry. All his valuables were present, and there was no indication that anything had been disturbed anywhere in his house. So the scene ends up being kind of that side area of his house, those bushes and where his body was. And as I discussed before, his car was present in his garage as well. Investigators did find some clues as to a timeline of the last hours of Mr. Gehrman's life. They looked through his trash and they found a receipt that was dated on September the 2nd, and it was a receipt for Roberto's Taco Shop, and the transaction time was 9:03 a.m. So detectives go and pull the video from Roberto's Taco Shop to see if they can find Jeff Gehrman present, and he's alive and well at that time. The video time at Roberto's was incorrect, so they went by the cash register receipt, the transaction time, which was 9:03 a.m. On the 2nd, and they watched, and he bought his food and went back to the car, and it was uneventful. One thing that was lucky for detectives was that the Baileys, the couple that lived across the street from Mr. Gehrman, had a home surveillance system. And one of their cameras actually pointed to the front of Jeff Gehrman's house. So they pull that video and they see a figure come to the side of Mr. Gehrman's house. And the figure, as you saw, is dressed in orange. And that person stays lying in wait for Jeff Gehrman. Mr. Gehrman opens his garage and goes over to that side yard and he's attacked. After killing Jeff Gehrman, the assailant walks down from the side yard and goes back down Jeff Gehrman's street and just walks away. He's picked up on additional surveillance video a little bit further down the street. And eventually there's surveillance of this individual seen getting into a maroon Yukon Denali SUV. And so police try to collect all available video that is present in the neighborhood. Meanwhile, Jeff Gehrman's body was transported for an autopsy at the Clark County Medical Examiner's office. When his body was at the office, the cause of death was determined to be multiple sharp force injuries. A crime scene analyst attended the autopsy and collected fingernail clippings and scrapings from Jeff Gehrman's hands to see if there was foreign DNA present. Those samples were taken to Metro's DNA lab, and foreign DNA was detected in the right fingernail clippings of Jeff Gehrman. There was foreign DNA collected, but no one knew who it belonged to. So the murder happens on September the 2nd. Mr. Gehrman's body is found on September the 3rd. After that, Metro released through their public information officer images of that assailant and of the vehicle. So after Metro released those images to the public, asking for help if anybody recognized the vehicle or anyone recognized the individuals, they get a lot of calls come in. And some of the calls they get are about an individual by the name of Robert Tellis, the defendant. At the time, Mr. Tellis was the elected public administrator for Clark County, and a public administrator, when someone dies, sometimes handles the property and looking for next of kin in order to apportion property after someone's death. And in 2022, Mr. Tellis was running for re-election for his post as the Clark County administrator. And detectives learned that Jeff Gehrman had written a series of unflattering articles about Robert Tellis. In those news stories, Gehrman alleged that Mr. Tellis had engaged in an inappropriate relationship with a coworker. He alleged that he was a bad manager and that he engaged in favoritism and bullying in the workplace. That was the first article. Mr. Gehrman wrote a second article saying that another individual had to be appointed to the public administrator's office in order to take over the management, alleging that Mr. Tellis was a poor manager. Soon after those articles ran in June, Mr. Tellis lost his primary election for public administrator, and Mr. Gehrman wrote about that as well. Mr. Tellis responded to the articles written by Mr. Gehrman and claimed they were politically motivated, that they were unfair, and he generally disputed what was alleged in those articles. And following this post by Robert Tellis, Jeff Gehrman wrote another article about Robert Tellis, alleging many of the things that I had previously discussed. Mr. Tellis also engaged in, I guess, saying unfavorable things about Mr. Gehrman on Twitter. He accused Mr. Gehrman of going through his trash. He accused Mr. Gehrman of being a bully. He accused Mr. Gehrman of threatening him, all over Twitter, which I guess is now X. Meanwhile, the police do more investigation and they learn that the Tellis family has a maroon Yukon Denali SUV. And that is important, obviously, because that is seen in the video connected to the assailant. So the search for video, where it sort of started in Gehrman's neighborhood, now focuses kind of on the areas in between Tellis's neighborhood and Gehrman's neighborhood. And this is not just like, hey, is there any video out there? They really look for video. They have a grid, they assign officers, and everybody is looking for any video of this SUV between the two residences. Now, the police still had their timeline where they could go back and they knew that Jeff Gehrman was alive and well at 9:03 a.m. on the 2nd. And they map out the route between Robert Tellis's house and Jeff Gehrman's house. Now, Mr. Tellis lives on a street called Spanish Steps, and to get out of his neighborhood, you go down a street called Silk Tassel, and then you can turn on a street called Red Hills Road. And on the morning of the murder of September the 2nd, officers found video of Mr. Tellis's SUV leaving his neighborhood on the morning of the murder. To give you some reference point, Mr. Gehrman's residence, as I said, is on Bronze Circle. Streets in his area include Wintergreen Drive and Rock Springs Drive, and detectives go all over that area to see if there's any video that they can find of that Yukon in the neighborhood. And they find on the morning of the murder that that Yukon was present on Rock Springs Drive, and they collect that video. Again, the street the cross street for Bronze Circle, Mr. Gehrman Street, is Wintergreen Drive. They collect video from Wintergreen Drive as well, and they see the red SUV or maroon SUV in the area as well. They see that maroon SUV interact with kind of workers at a construction site. And the SUV does not go in a direct linear line anywhere. It's picked up on cameras at different times in the area of Jeff German's neighborhood. One of the cameras picks up the driver of the SUV. You can kind of see that orange clothing, and it appears that the driver is the only one present. At some point, the cameras in that neighborhood pick up an individual, this individual, getting out of the car. And the individual is seen on Wintergreen, walking past Bronze Circle, going south on Wintergreen, going north, kind of meandering around the neighborhood near Jeff German's house. Ultimately, the individual is seen traveling in the direction of Jeff German's house on Bronze Circle, going further towards German's house on Bronze Circle, and then ultimately to the side of the house. And then in sequence, after the assailant goes to the side of the house, that's when Mr. German opens his garage door. He goes to the side and he's attacked. The assailant leaves Mr. German there in the rocks, has his bag with him, and walks down the street. He goes further down the street toward Wintergreen, and he ultimately goes back to that maroon SUV. That maroon SUV, though, then proceeds south on Wintergreen, and it actually heads back in the direction of German's house. And you can kind of see it parked in front. The individual gets out, goes back towards where the body is. And then the individual returns back to the Yukon. The Yukon leaves Bronze Circle, the cul-de-sac for Jeff Gehrman. It goes back on Wintergreen Drive. It goes west on Washington. It goes on Rampart, goes on Apple, and it goes back to Silk Tassel and Mr. Tellis's neighborhood. So with this video evidence and the evidence of the conflict between Mr. Gehrman and Mr. Tellis, the police seek a search warrant on September the 7th, and they want to get a DNA sample from Mr. Tellis. They want to seize his phone, and they also want to search his house. On September 7th, the police make contact with Mr. Tellis, and they photograph him all over. In particular, they photograph his hands, and they notice on one of his fingers, he has a Band-Aid. They ask him to remove that Band-Aid, and he has a cut injury on one of his fingers. While detectives are photographing and getting that DNA sample from Mr. Tellis, other detectives go to Mr. Tellis's house and execute a search warrant there. So they go to the house that very same day on September the 7th, and some of the detectives are looking through the living room area of the house, and they're kind of focused on the end of the couch, sort of underneath. They see a shoe, and there's actually a Ziploc bag on the right side of the photo. They examine the shoe. They find the companion shoe, but that shoe has been cut in half and sort of destroyed. And the bag, that baggie that was underneath that couch, actually contains pieces of the shoe as well. So they collect that evidence. And the reason why that was important for them is they compared it to the shoes worn by that assailant on Bronze Circle on September the 2nd. They don't just search in the house, they search in the garage as well. And there's a gray kind of tub in the garage that sort of stores stuff. And they take a closer look, and they look at that bag there, and they photograph it and impound it. And they believe the bag is significant in their search because the assailant was carrying a bag that's exactly like the one they found in Mr. Tellis's house. So they find the shoes, they find the bag. They do a search in this garage, which is quite crowded with stuff. And on this, at the bottom of this red tool cabinet, they find a bag from, like a grocery bag from Sprouts. And inside that bag, they find a hat that has been cut up as well. And the hat, of course, is significant because it has the same identifying characteristics as the hat worn by the assailant. So this is all happening on September the 7th. Detectives return Mr. Tellis back to his house on September the 7th, and they actually rush to process his DNA sample that same day. And it's determined that that foreign DNA that was found in those fingernail clippings taken from autopsy of Jeff Gehrman, that foreign DNA is consistent with Robert Tellis. So they go back to his residence with the intent of taking him into custody for the murder of Jeff Gehrman. And they come to find eventually that he has inflicted injuries on himself, a suicide attempt, and they have to transport him to the hospital for treatment, but he is taken into custody. After that occurs, remember how I said that they took his phone as well? They're able to see some of the messages that occurred between Jeff Gehrman and Robert Tellis. One of those messages is from Mr. Gehrman on May the 10th. You can see it at the bottom of 2022, where Mr. Gehrman says, "Hi, this is Jeff Gehrman from the Review Journal. I'm putting together a story on your office. I've talked to several employees who have said you have created a hostile work environment. They also say you've had an inappropriate relationship with one of your staffers, and I very much wanted to talk to you and sort of get your side of the story. After that message was sent, Robert Tellis actually does agree to be interviewed by Jeff Garriman, and he invites him to the public administrator's office, and he sits down with him for an interview. And this is the story that ran digitally for the Review Journal.
The Clark County Public Administrator's Office has been mired in turmoil and
internal dissension for 2 years, with workers claiming emotional stress.
bullying and favoritism. Robert Tellis, who leads the office, has also faced allegations of an inappropriate relationship with a coworker, Roberta Lee Kennett. In an interview with Review Journal investigative reporter Jeff Garriman, Tellis disputed several complaints.
What is your reaction to the allegations from these employees that you have created a hostile environment in this office?
Yeah, I earlier introduced you to the other 7 team members, and they're folks who all come with a great attitude, and they work hard. And together, them and I, we are what is making the difference with the performance of this office. I've done my best to try to make everyone happy, but again, it's got to be within a certain framework. And people just cannot get to do whatever they want, and it's unfortunate that, we have some people who were here from before who are basically trying to railroad me. And again, you meet those other folks, they're happy, they're dedicated, and we're just here to do a good job.
Tellis, who's up for re-election in the June primary, blames a handful of old-timers for claims about a hostile environment in the office.
And again, no matter what type of gestures I try to make to smooth things over, to make sure that they're happy, they just don't, it's nonstop. And again, like I said, it's hard for me to make sure that I am a cheerleader for the folks who are doing really good work when I've got these other folks who are constantly, surveilling me, constantly trying to sabotage the office. But, we're doing it, but it's hard.
Tellis denied allegations of any improper relationship with Lee Kennett.
And when you hear people raising these allegations about you and quote, personal relationship that you had, what do you say to people about that?
Honestly, it's not true. So I'm, all of my friends, all my family know how much I love my wife. And if you look at it, obviously you can't talk to people I do on a daily basis. But from my social media, from everything, you can see that I am about nothing but justice, fairness, and just being a good person. And it saddens me, it destroys me that somebody would even level accusations like that, because I don't know, it's unreal. It's unreal the lengths that they're going to. They don't have any qualms trying to ruin my personal life to win this race.
The digital version also included a link with some video of Mr. Tellis and the alleged, the person he was allegedly having an inappropriate relationship with. So after this story ran, Mr. Tellis contacts Jeff Garriman, and he's upset. He tells Mr. Garriman, "I don't know what to say. I told you about how much this has all impacted me. You heard from employees who are being harassed by these people, provided you," I think he means proof here, "proof that I was doing my best to actually smooth things over after I had to make hard decisions. Still, you wrote an article that makes me sound like I'm the guilty one. That was not fair and balanced." So what happens after that? Mr. Garriman contacts Robert Tellis again, and this time the communication is about the county deciding to appoint another person within the public administrator's office to help run things. Mr. Garriman messages Mr. Tellis, "I understand that Mike Murphy has been brought in by the county, hired by the county as a consultant to work at the to work in the office with you guys for a while. And I wanted to see if you had any kind of comment about that. Mr. Messages back to Mr. Gehrman. I will be providing it to you this evening. Later on, Mr. Tellis posts that that statement that I had shown you earlier, where he says it's politically motivated, none of the allegations are true, this is unfair, I'm being unfairly attacked. All of the things alleged in those articles are false. And what happens after that? Well, Mr. Gehrman writes the story about the consultant being appointed at the public administrator's office. After those two stories run, Mr. Gehrman contacts Tellis again. He says, I'm putting together another story on your office. This is now in June the 16th. This has to do with the letter you posted on your campaign website addressing the hostile work allegations. Employees view this as a threat of retaliation and have reported it to Human Resources. I'd like to get your comments. And Mr. Tellis responds back, it's fine, at this point they've won, do what you'd like. And of course, after that, Mr. Tellis loses his primary election, so he will no longer be
All right, I'm back.
another in as of 2020.
Who missed me the
public
most?
Administrator. Another thing that detectives found in Mr. Tellis's phone is something associated with like a phone extraction. So when you have a cell phone, it can be downloaded by this program called Celebrite, and it'll download a lot of the data in your phone. And one of the things that was downloaded from Mr. Tellis's phone is
Which guy are you
files
asking
that
about?
He accessed on Google Maps, and you can see there are thumbnail photos associated with those maps that he downloaded.
Oh, David, why?
And it's probably hard to see.
Why would you want to
the
hurt me like
the
that?
thumbnails of what that picture, those two pictures are
Wipe
of.
away my tears.
But here's a bigger version, and it should look familiar to you because it's the side of Jeff Gehrman's house where Mr. Gehrman's body was ultimately found. And that image was in Mr. Tellis's phone. Detectives also execute a search warrant on the office of Mr. Tellis at the public administrator's office. They search his work computer as well. And in some of the searching on his work computer, they find that he was looking up the make and model associated with Jeff Gehrman's car, which
Thank you,
I
listen.
think is a Honda. So that was found in his work
Probably,
computer as well.
probably something from my
And
Amazon
all that,
algorithm.
all the articles kind of
Maybe fish
conclude
sandals,
in
I don't
like
know.
late June of 2022. In July of 2022, Mr. Gehrman does a public records request from the county. And the records request is for more documents and communications from the public administrator's office. And specifically, he's asking for emails between Robert Tellis and an individual by the name of Roberta Lee Kennett.
Hearings went
He's
well.
asking for all
Very quick.
communications and messages
Could have been
on Teams, which is a
gnarly,
way,
but it was
inter-office
quick.
way of communicating.
So
He's asking for text messages from their cell phones, and he notes, probably as all reporters do, that you're required as a county agency to respond to a public records request. That request takes place again in July of 2022. The county notifies Mr. Tellis that, hey, Mr. Gehrman is requesting additional information from the office, and they're going to work to fulfill that public records request. Mr. Tellis responds to the county that he would like to see whatever is going to be provided in the public records request and asks about how he may be able to do so. And then several weeks pass, and there's another communication from attorneys for the county about the public records request. And if you look at the date and time on this, this is a notification from the DA civil employees about that request on September
Remember,
the
Beth,
1st.
opening and closing
2022
statements are not
at
evidence.
5:45 p.m. So that's about 15 hours before the murder occurs.
But
he gets a
Yeah, it's
notification
gonna be hard.
about Mr. Garman's request.
It's gonna be hard for him to
On a
get around
calendar,
this.
there's an email on the 1st at 5:45 PM, and about 15 hours later, the murder occurs. In the end, this case isn't about politics. It's not about alleged inappropriate relationships. It's not about who's a good boss or who's a good supervisor or favoritism at work. It's just about murder. And at the end of the presentation of the evidence, we'll ask you to hold him responsible for his conduct.
Okay, at this time, we're gonna take a recess. During this recess, you're admonished not to discuss or communicate with anyone, including your fellow jurors, in any
Yes, of course. Oh man, so they took the sound. So when are they coming back? Arr. It's basically kind of a sort of an outline or a roadmap. Basically, that each side kind of presents its theory of the case. So you just heard it, the prosecutor stating, "Look, this is how it went down. There were the murders. The neighbors saw him, and all this predates, with the reporting and blah blah blah. And now an open records request. It was, and then the next day, boom, the guy's dead." Yes, that is Judge Levitt. She is the judge who, if you go to our Nevada judges and look up Kim Blandino, she was the presiding judge in that case, the Kim Blandino case. So if you want to have some good, have a good laugh, go watch the Kim Blandino case. But well, he's a duly elected, public official. So maybe, but I don't know when they're coming back. So anyway, there you go. I got back just in time to catch the end and go to break. So, it says they're on a short break. Wait. Sorry. My ego there. Live court is on a short break. Okay. See what my giant head covers up there? Okay. So there you go. Yes, she is also the same judge that heard Chile's appeal and granted the relief. Well, I think he's stating that he is basically was set up. I know that one of the things that delayed this, that if you watched the primer video that I posted Monday, they're alleging that he was set up, and one of the discovery items that they want from his phone, and there was a whole issue about his this reporter's laptop, emails, all of his things. They were protected by Nevada shield laws to protect sources and information and blah blah blah. But one of the things that was on his phone was a death threat from somebody else back in February, I think, of the same year, September 2nd, and this was February of that same year. Someone else had left some sort of death threat voicemail. So, I don't know, but I think they're going to hang their hat. Look, it was someone else who there was someone else that wanted him dead, and so it was not him. It was always the person who wanted him dead, and they thought, well, Gehrman did all this reporting on Robert Tellez. He's got an axe to grind. We'll frame him. And they were very meticulous, even going so far as to put Tellez's DNA under the decedent's fingernails. So very good, very thorough frame and cover up. So yeah, I don't know. Usually that kind of defense doesn't work. Worked for OJ, but that's about it. That is about it. So that's what I don't know. I have no sort of special knowledge or anything, but that's just kind of casually following this case. I'm guessing that's probably somewhere where they will go. I know he did an interview where he said he was framed and everything will come out in trial and blah, blah, blah. Choppy? Oh dear. Let's see here. Let's see. Well, what can I do about being choppy? We were local counsel for one of OJ's co-defendants. Actually, Walter Alexander. This was in 2007. And that was a fun experience because I didn't really have to do anything, just go to court. And anyway, he ended up testifying against OJ, Walter Alexander. And but that is my claim to fame, that I was, when we were on a break, I went to the restroom there, and so there I am at the urinal, one empty urinal, because that's the way you do it, guys know. And then the next one over, all of a sudden I look over and it's OJ Simpson. So I have peed like one urinal stall there from OJ Simpson. So there you go. How's that for a claim to fame? How's that? Yes, David, like I said, these framers here they were very, very thorough. Very, very thorough. So yes, how many other people can say that they peed next to? No, wait. Pauline, you don't look. Like, guys, come on. This is, back me up here. You don't look. You don't ever look. And they're little dividers too, but you just don't. And you don't go right next to the person unless it's like urgent and there is no other urinal. You don't go right next to the person. So just, there you go. If you need any urinal etiquette, that's how it goes. You look, you never look, and you always go. No, you wouldn't. You just don't. No. Okay. You don't look. That's fine. You can cackle, don't look. Okay. Don't look. So yeah, I mean, you don't look down. I guess I did, when I like, oh my gosh, that's OJ. But no, you don't look down. Well, that's why I'm telling you. But it's just, I don't know. Ask any where are the guys here in this chat. They'll tell you. It's just, I don't know. That's just how it goes. We were just born knowing too. We were social distancing before it was a thing. Like you don't go next to that person, and then you don't look. So I'm so disappointed. You don't look. And the fact that you would look makes me think that I can't trust you. That's just the code. Yeah, see, that's what men don't understand that. Why it takes 5 of you to go to the bathroom with one. So yeah, explain that one. That one makes no sense. Not looking, being a space apart, that makes perfect sense. And every male knows that. They don't even have to be taught that. It's just like, yeah, hardwired into your DNA. No, there's really not. Just keep a space and don't look. Ew. Really? What kind of stories are you telling in the bathroom? See, now this is horrifying. Okay, now it's not fear. It's not fear. It's respect, bodily integrity, and respect for your fellow man. What? The greatest of relationships are forged in women's restroom. Truth. Complete strangers become your new buddies in women's rooms. What is going on? Are you seriously? All right, Jill, to get you caught up, don't look, one space between. The other people, they can explain it to you. Go to the women's room, apparently. That's where all the fun happens. Like, what is, how can you have like a conversation? Like, I don't mean to be crude, but what if someone's like, you know, dropping a deuce, it stinks in there or something, like what, and you're just like, oh, you're just like giving each other emotional support, just really, like in that setting? No, I mean, I've seen it's like when, yeah, it takes like 5 of you for one person to go to the bathroom. Like, I have to go to the bathroom, and then like, yeah, everyone leaves. I've seen that. No, that's not it. Like I said, it's respect. I mean, are you okay? So, I mean, I'm learning about the women's room. Are you taking your tops off and comparing cup sizes? I mean, what is going on here?
Yo, 1 2 1 2 2 2 2 2 2.
Wait, you're besties with you got your bathroom bestie? Is that? Wait, what's going on here? There's sound coming from the Corp TV feed. All right. Oh yeah, it's full on quilting bee, just mending clothes and gossiping about. There are other places to discuss it. I'm just saying, it just, you know. Okay, that's fine. I mean, I guess do your thing in the women's room if you're ever in a men's room, like I say, and at the urinal, don't look. Don't look. Leave an empty urinal in between you and the next person. Okay. Wait, I hear. Can you guys hear that? I hear something stirring. Anyway. All right. Well, maybe they should put, I don't know, couches and chairs and stuff in the ladies' room. You know, funny you should bring that up, because, you know, as I do some of these things in my algorithm, but I did find something very interesting on Amazon that was for sale. Maybe I can find it again. Maybe I can't. We'll see. That really hasn't been an issue since, I don't know, that was a year now, whenever I got potty trained. So, just saying. Yeah, I understand. I'm not talking about like a mother's lounge or whatever for, you know, nursing mothers. I'm talking, you know, maybe they should just sort of convert them into, like, you know, apartments. They have a little kitchenette and a fridge in there, and get yourself a, I don't know, just sit and chat. Perhaps, I don't know. There's nothing but love. There's nothing but love. Oh, okay. My bad. I mean, you got sinks and soap. You can wash your hands. Why can't you eat? I mean, why is that a thing? Like, if you can do everything else that you're talking about, I mean, why not just make it a rest apartment instead of a restroom? Maybe I'm Can you hear me at least? Can you hear me? Okay, so you can hear audio. Now I don't know what happened to my camera. Well, I don't know what just happened.
And the defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Pressler, you may address the jury in your opening statement.
Thank you.
Well, this is better anyway. You don't want to see me.
You know, Her Honor said this morning that the defense may make an opening statement. You discussed yesterday and the day before that the defense may sit, not say a single word, not even ask a single question, not present a single piece of evidence.
I'm afraid I'm gonna have to restart it, but I'm gonna lose the
and be
stream
entitled to a verdict of not guilty.
if I restart it.
Oftentimes, defense attorneys, in presumably at the get-go, what appear to be tough cases, sit back, wait, attempt to poke holes at the state's cases it's presented, but we're not going to do that. We're going to stand before you today and tell you what this case is about. You know, Her Honor said this morning when she instructed you that it's upon you and you alone to make inferences from the evidence in this case. And when the evidence is complete,
Nobody wants to see me.
and the evidence is
Trust me.
closed, we're going to ask you to do that. This case is entitled "The State of Nevada" or Nevada versus Robert.
Julie,
Tellis.
someone else said that. I
Let's talk just a little bit about Mr. Tellis.
gotta admit, I don't see it.
He's a family man, married, 3 children. He's a loving father and husband. He's a self-made man. He applied to our law school here, UNLV, and worked doing air conditioning, HVAC. It's a hard way to make a living, put himself through school.
I went to UNLV Law.
In addition to supporting his family and being engaged at school, he became the president of the university bar. It's basically the student body president of his law school. He ran his own probate firm for 3 years and was named Pro Bono Attorney of the Year by the Nevada Legal Services in 2000.
You know, Arto, now I think some of these people would touch.
Administrator and was elected in
They already said they would
2000
look.
in 19. He was determined at that point in time to clean up the office of the public administrator's office.
But I think they would touch it.
He went in that office with a goal and with a mission. And as we had spoken briefly through the process of jury selection, he kind of upset the apple cart. He started eliminating
Yes,
unnecessary
he's that
overtime.
kind of
He wanted the
family
office
man.
to run more efficiently. In some cases, we had public employees that are paid by our tax dollars
That's you don't look.
reporting 40+ hours per week of overtime.
You don't look.
And let me tell you, his changes at this office were not received well. And that created
Hey,
this
there I am. Can you see me?
work environment. As a result of this hostility, reports were made, as they should be. Obviously, our public and our duly elected officials should be looked upon. Comes with the job. In Mr. Gehrman's first report, it states among the changes, Tellis said he made our closing estate cases faster and cut back on large amounts of tax-funded overtime employees are getting under Cahill. He provided a document that showed one veteran employee received more than $140,000 in overtime between 2017 and 2018. That was on the top of the employee's combined $150,000 regular salary for those years. The employee overtime dropped to roughly $13,500 in 2020, which you can see is a substantial reduction, according to the document. Nicole Lofton, in a state coordinator for the past year,
What in
said
my
the old
background?
guard acts like a little gang and has tried to isolate her. Lofton said she has suffered from migraines and from stress. They told me from the beginning to pick a side, she said, adding that Tellis does everything he can to help her succeed while the other group wants her to fail. Again, that was the source. That was the seed of this hostile, allegedly hostile work environment. After being duly elected, Mr. Tellis also
I shouldn't
began
laugh, but
evaluating the ethics of
that's-
the office's relationship
that's pretty good,
with
David.
third-party vendors. And you're going to hear that through the course of this case, because perhaps the state wants to make things simpler. This was part of the facts and the evidence from which you will be called upon to draw inferences. He set out to identify the suspicious nature of businesses conducted by outside facilitators of administration operating under the Independent Administrations Act. And we need to just discuss this a little bit, because the RJ did a very good job of following up on this and reporting these problems. You have people who die. They don't have wills. They may not have heirs. They may not have estates.
No, that's not.
And unfortunately for them,
That's not how the
their
men's room
legacy
work.
is stolen by these third
It's just
parties.
not how they work.
Generally, if a person dies intestate, it goes to the public administrator's office, and they deal with the affairs, which often involves the sale of homes. Under this Independent Administrations Act, there are third parties who would come in, oftentimes with no announcement. to the
David,
family
where are
members,
your
take the
priorities?
properties, devalue the properties, and then turn around and sell them, and then to a straw buyer, and ultimately sell them again and make millions of dollars. Robert Tellis was determined to stop that, regardless of the consequences. What we saw here and what he saw when he began was basically corporate interest over public interest in the
Oh,
state
wait.
of Nevada. We all experience that every
There,
day.
I'm gone. Now you can read it.
The national bird, the cones, to the casinos sucking money out of our society for their own gain. And that was occurring at the public administrator's office when Robert Tellis was elected. In
Okay,
his review,
fair enough.
he discovered the public administrator's office had been
Fair
favoring
enough.
Compass Realty in the distribution of home sale contracts. Again, he was upsetting the apple cart. He saw this relationship as truly a violation of Nevada law.
I see what you did there, Artson.
Office. He also discovered that Compass Realty was using the straw buyer again to conduct this business and to hide their activities. It was an inherent conflict.
Even if the French pole vaulter
Mr.
is in the
Tellis
men's
was
room
not going to
at the
stand
urinal,
for this.
you don't look. Okay? Am I clear?
In March
You just don't look.
2022, Mr. Tellis contacted the duly elected district attorney, Steve Wolfson, and he wanted to report his findings to Mr. Wolfson. Now, Mr. Tellis was an elected official, so was Mr. Wolfson. It's appropriate for Mr. Wolfson to give an audience to Mr. Tellis. He did. Mr. Tellis called him, explained his concerns. Mr. Wolfson put him in contact with a detective, Jappy, a Metro Intelligence officer, who generally investigates public corruption. Mr. Wolfson felt that Detective Jappy could be of assistance to Mr. Tellis in this investigation because Mr. Tellis felt that laws were being broken and people were being stolen from, heirs were being stolen from by these third parties. Mr.
Yeah.
Tellis accepted this referral and contacted Mr. Jappy. Again, from the celibate extraction, we have records to corroborate this. Hi, detective, next time you call back, I'm hanging up on anyone else if I'm on a call, because this was very important to Mr. Tellis to get this investigation underway. Mr. Tellis put together a very exhaustive investigative report to expose this corruption. It was sent to Detective Jappy on March 6, 2022, and it names the individuals that Mr. Tellis was primarily concerned about. It contained evidence, it contained exhibits, it contained proof of this corruption that previously his office had turned a blind eye to, and it was the prior guard and ultimately the subsequent guard. that
Right,
would
Zoe,
investigate
it's a
practice
thing.
that would concern
You
Mr. Tellis.
don't look down.
Mr. Tellis and Detective Jappy agreed to meet and further discuss the possible bribery and the corruption conspiracy that was occurring in his office.
See, that's why he had to be framed.
Again, the meeting
Because
was
he's the real
unavailable.
hero here.
Nonetheless, Mr. Tellis tried to follow through and is basically saying, hey, we need to get together. I need to provide this information to you and discuss the same. Detective Jaffe returns the email.
Colleen, I hope you saw that someplace other than the men's room, though.
Again, Mr. Tellis
Okay.
is following up because he wants to expose.
As long as you saw it somewhere other than the men's room.
During their meeting, and they ultimately met, Detective Jaffe agreed that Mr. Tellis should continue his investigation and that Detective Jaffe would assist in building a case of bribery and corruption. See, the reason this is important, and we will get there as we begin to unfold this story for you, is there became to be some irregularities, which we're going to present to you. And again, you are called upon to make your inferences from the state of the evidence. In reference to one of these three individuals contained within his exhaustive report, Mr. Tellis states, hey, Derek, I'm supposed to have a meeting with this individual and her counsel next week. If you think I need to get any specific statements, please give me a call to discuss. He responds, thank you, sir. We'll reach out tomorrow.
Sorry, I get my head out of the way there. I know you'd rather read that.
Detective Jaffe initiated his own investigation and began surveillance. So we have police actors, metro actors now acting as a consequence or as a result of Mr. Tellis's effort. And we have this surveillance that occurs on April 27th, 2022. And this surveillance was conducted because of what Mr. Tellis was doing. Metro Intelligence was getting involved. Because of this involvement and because of this independent investigation that Mr. Tellis had initially begun, the old guard at the public administrator's office began to push back.
Nobody wants to
Oftentimes,
sit
human
down.
beings were not happy with change, especially when it affects the bottom line of other people. That's what occurred.
Trust me, Conroy, you don't want a man with peace.
In addition to their hostility towards
Okay.
the new employees,
This for all
in,
you ladies.
Rita Reed and her supporters began following
A man who sits down to pee.
They captured
It's
images
just-
which
it's not a
you
man.
saw in the state's opening statement of Mr. Tellis and Miss Lee Kennett getting out of the back of the vehicle. And
Because you
this as a way
respect
to Jeff
your
Graham.
fellow man. That's why you don't look.
Now, Jeff German has been in this community for a lot of years, and if he's presented evidence on other side of the equation, he looks
That's
into
fine.
it, and he did as a result of this old guard trying to get rid of Mr. Tellis. During their investigation, and that being the old guard, Rita Reed announces that she will oppose Robert Tellis in the upcoming election for public administrator.
Yeah, plus they're in there chit-chatting too. Yeah, that's no wonder
2
the
weeks after the
women's
first
room
article
line
was
is
published,
so
he
long.
receives a campaign contribution from Compass Realty and Adam Fenn totaling $10,000. And oftentimes you hear follow the money. Well, that's what Mr. Tellis was
It's
asking.
easier to pee standing up.
Detective
So
Jaffe.
urinals are a thing. They're not going away.
At this point in time, and this is curious, and this runs into this murder investigation, Detective Jaffe pivots. Initially, he's looking at the true bad actors in this case, but he pivots and begins looking at Robert Tellis, the whistleblower, the person who initiated this investigation and who's trying to bring Metro in to investigate the wrongdoing.
I don't know what to make of that poker face of his.
Hey, sir, 2 things. Just wanted to know we are still working on what we've talked about and starting to get a better understanding.
Maybe the middle line might be the
I
only
saw the
exception.
article today, and just want to make
know?
sure you're all good. Now, this is
Yes,
in reference to that
efficiency.
first article that Mr. Garman wrote, and this is Detective Jaffe communicating with Mr. Tellis. Mr. Tellis responds, thanks, I'm hanging in there. I'll forward you the truth of the matter. It states that, and that's just how Mr. Tellis was feeling. The RJ wants to drag me through the mud.
You could be standing up into a urinal.
Order everything, but of course,
Take up less space.
papers. Detective Jaffe responds. Again, we have May 16th. You'll see at the bottom.
Oh,
I
way.
understand that completely. Sorry you have to go through this, but the truth will always come out and prevail.
Looks like Mr. Draskevich
Through the course
created
of
his
this trial,
PowerPoint
we
without
now
Viva Las Vegas
ask
2.0
you
in mind.
to be willing to let the truth prevail. This is of concern. Now, on June 23rd, 2022.
Yes, like
Kimberly
old
McMahon,
school
former
places
real
like that.
estate
Yes, have the
provided
troughs.
services
You
for the
just
public
stand around and pee into a
reaches out
giant
to
trough.
Alicia Goodwin, the member of the old guard.
That is true, Zoe.
All right.
How do you know these
We
things?
have an email indicating
You're not
that.
supposed to know.
Again, we have Goodwin, who's part of the old guard, and we have Kimberly McMahon somehow getting involved in influencing Detective Jappy. We have Kimberly McMahon, who is a former real estate agent and officer, wanting to get together and discuss these articles and what's going on in the public administrator's office. This goes so far that on 8/9, Detective Jappy is approached by Ms. McMahon. It's our belief, and we believe this will be disclosed through the course of this trial, that Alicia Goodwin and Rita Reed put her up to this. McMahon states, and I will submit to you that there will be no evidence produced that this is true, but McMahon told Jappy that there is some attempt to receive kickbacks in exchange for real estate listings referred to the public administrator's office. So again, the very thing that he's accusing others of, it's getting turned on him. And we're having Detective Jappy, we have Metro pivoting.
Oh, come on.
And Miss McMahon,
Man, we're
gives a
great.
total
We're lovable.
interview with
Come on,
Jappy.
Colleen.
So
You
we're
don't
again
mean
having
that.
this pushback from the old guard as a result of Mr. Tellis's involvement and calling in.
There's
I mean,
backsplash.
we
You
have this
just
gentleman
pee on a
that's
flat
filed
rock
this case,
out, you know,
calling
you're
in
camping or something.
for the assistance
Gotta watch
of
out for that.
Metro to discover and expose this corruption. This is what's really.
It doesn't seem like they did.
The alleged solicitation of kickbacks, where she's claiming that.
You know, this guy Gehrman like reported, and he's been doing this like the early 80s when the mob was booted out of all the casinos, and he was doing all that reporting. You ever saw the movie Casino?
We're to believe that
That's like that time frame, and that's like Tony the Ant Spilotro, and was reporting on that, and he survived.
Absurd.
Yeah, the mob, reporting on the mob, but
This very same
not the
official,
public
Robert Tallis,
administrator.
is the one that conducted his own investigation, his own independent investigation, to try and bring Metro attention to this corruption. We're now to believe that this gentleman is actually soliciting kickbacks from a Metro detective. In response to McMahon's statement, Detective Jappy files an application for a pen register and a trap and trace with real-time precision location of Mr. Tellis's cell phone. Now, this is important, and see, this is the crossover and why it's important for you to understand the factual backdrop of all the facts in this case. Mr. Tellis is actually subject to this pen register, this trap and trace device during the time that this murder is allegedly committed by him. See, what happens is in today's modern reality, everything oftentimes boils
See,
down
we're
to
not
cell phones.
animals.
I mean, every second that we have the cell phones with us, there's messages being sent, there's signals being sent 1,000 times a second.
No,
By cell
they really
towers,
wouldn't have to prove it.
ultimately through satellites. I mean, our position and our whereabouts is tracked all the time. So
I don't
Detective
think so,
Jappy
so no.
submits this warrant because we have a privacy right in our phones. He submits a warrant to a judge and gets an order authorizing Mr. Tellis to, in essence, be tracked. Now, this pen register does not capture the content of communications. It doesn't capture the information that's sent via text or otherwise, but it collects what they call the metadata. It gets your location, sometimes within feet. Oftentimes it's in relation to a cell phone tower, but it's more specific than that. You get the data concerning who's calling, who's sending, and who's receiving communications. Again, there's a Fourth Amendment protection, but we don't get into the content of the conversation, but it lets us know, it lets law enforcement know who Mr. Tellis is communicating with, where he's at, in essence, what he's doing in relation to the people that he's in
Nor
communication
do we
with
desire
as a
to.
result of the cell phone.
We are task oriented in the public restroom. We are task oriented
This
for
is a
sure.
warrant
Faux show.
produced and obtained by Detective Jappy based upon that former, but she was at the time when these solicitations supposedly occurred, was a Metro detective. On the same day, and this is August 17th, Detective Jappy initiates surveillance of Mr. Tellis. We have a surveillance log, August 17th, 2022. So in truth, we have this full pivot that occurs, which is apparently based upon these allegations made by Ms. McMahon at the insistence.
And I'm positive Draskovich did not come cheap.
Interesting is during this August 17th, 2022 surveillance, got Mr. Tellis taking care of his family. I mean, he's been away, he's been an official, he's lost his election. I mean, he's going back, focusing on what's important, focusing on his family.
Thank you, Leslie.
This surveillance that's being conducted by Metro Intelligence, I mean, they've got him going to Home Depot, picking up food at Chipotle. He's with family, he's home. Nothing more. On September
Lex Luthor
2nd,
and a grumpy cat.
the tragic murder of Jeff Gehrman occurs. But it's important for you to know that this murder occurs with the trap and trace active on Robert Tellis's cell phone. Detective Jappy and Metro captures no cell site location data which would implicate Robert Tellis in the murder of Jeff Gehrman.
He was smart enough to leave his phone at home.
We do know that
Remember that. The cell phones will snitch on you, man.
And sent.
Triangulation from cell towers, and boom, you are there at the scene
Cell phone
at the time.
Tellis there.
Just remember that.
He's at home.
Make yourself a better criminal.
He's not at home the entire day. Around noon, evidence will be presented to you that he's at a gym working out. And this is after he supposedly commits this murder. Another thing needs to be pointed out is the red or maroon Yukon, the Denali from the surveillance video, is never positively identified. Obviously, the state's going to call upon you to make references. But a DMV search produced 67 possible hits for the vehicle, matching that description. And what's important to note, it's Metro who should be objectively and even-handedly obtaining information, searching for evidence, never follows up on the other vehicles. From the get-go, they're concerned with Robert Tellis and Robert Tellis.
Yes,
alone.
Calmarie, I do know them.
This is the email confirming, and this is Metro.
Not very well, but I do know them.
67
Spoken to them
red Denalis that
on occasion.
basically match the description of the one that you watched the video of, and that we all watched it together just moments ago. Ms. Weckley did an apt job of laying out the crime scene, and you will see many photos of the crime scene. There's blood everywhere. I mean, this was a stabbing. There's blood in the bushes. There's blood on the ground. There's blood all over Jeff Gehrman as he lays dead on the side of his house. The state has shown you and will show you many more pictures of the DNA that's claimed to have been found under Jeff Gehrman's nails. But what's very important, and we'd ask you to take into account all of the evidence or the lack of the evidence in this case, is that no blood whatsoever is found on Mr. Tellis.
Who knew?
If this struggle had occurred, it would be reasonable to assume, if it had in fact been Mr. Tellis, that there would have been exchange of blood. or of DNA. And there will be a great deal of
Would
testimony.
have exchanged
concerning
DNA.
Inferences will be made,
one way
inferences
of
will be drawn, and inferences will be attacked concerning the
saying it.
significance of the state's findings. The shoes that you were shown photos of that were recovered at Mr. Teller's residence, no blood whatsoever on them.
Oh, yeah, Beth, he's answering your question.
The bag that's found in his garage or in the room, storage room, no blood whatsoever found on that bag. The hat that they claim they found cut up, again, no connection, no tie whatsoever to Jeff Cameron. There is no rational explanation as to why the hat and shoes were cut into pieces, except that it's probably easier to conceal and plant. Why else would they be cut up? Why would they be in that strange condition? What's important, again, is there's no blood on them. There's nothing tying those articles that were found in Mr. Tellis's house to Jeff Garman. A witness provided a statement to police that the killer was spotted in the same outfit days before the murder, acting suspiciously. That was never followed up on. Somebody similarly dressed, similarly clothed, no follow-up, because from the get-go, Robert Tellis was the target of this investigation. What's also important is the cell site location does not place him near that part where the individual matching this description previously was found. I'd also submit to you its significance is this meandering, and that was the state's words, the meandering before this attack occurred.
Does it work for you, Cal Marie?
Claim and an argument made.
Have you had success with that line?
Researching this location, or they believe it was him. Why the meandering if it was him? The washing of the vehicles, and this was important because warrants were based upon this. Mr. Tellis was again subject to surveillance after the date of Jeff Garman's murder. He's surveilled by Metro Intelligence washing 3 vehicles in front. At that point in time, and again, maybe there's been another pivot, but at that point in time, Metro felt that he was destroying evidence. Maybe he was cleaning up. Reason would make it a reasonable argument, or reason would obviously dictate that the person is involved in this stabbing. He gets into the vehicle, and there's obviously blood. Wouldn't there be blood on the vehicle? Wouldn't there be blood on the brakes, on the floor mats, somewhere inside the vehicle? Well, none was ever found. And in fact, this surveillance, and previous to this hearing, issues were made concerning this attempt to conceal evidence. Well, there was no evidence to dispose of. And the surveillance of him washing the outside of these 3 vehicles, and this is on September 6th. This is 4 days later. There's no evidence whatsoever, and no videos, no filming of him trying to conceal any evidence in reference to the subject vehicle or the other 2. I would submit to you that the facts would show, and common sense would dictate that if you were trying to conceal a crime, he wouldn't wash all 3 vehicles. And obviously, he would be concerned with the inside of the vehicle. Now, on this September 6th surveillance, it makes reference to a prior surveillance of Mr. Tellis on September 1st. Again, of no import, of no importance. Again, no evidence inside that vehicle tying Mr. Tellis to any crimes whatsoever. Now, is Mr. Tellis in a position to say who killed Mr. Garman? No. But I would submit to you the facts will show, in the reasonable inferences that you are to take from the evidence, is that there would be DNA evidence inside that vehicle, on the shoes, on any clothing from Mr. Tellis.
Yeah.
A picture was shown of Mr. Tellis's finger, and it'll be argued through the course of this case that
I don't think he's got good facial expressions every time they show him.
why this murder that occurred. There's no blood left at the scene where Mr. Gehrman was murdered either. Nothing. Not on the bushes, not on the rocks, not on Mr. Gehrman. Mr. Tellis explains that to detectives how we got that wound, but that will come through the course of this trial. What's of concern, and the reason that we've given you this backdrop to give you all the evidence, is somewhat strange behavior on behalf of Mr. Jappy. Now, he's Metro Intelligence. Metro is the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department is divided up into various details. You know, each department has their own responsibilities, their own special training. They work as teams. It's an effective way to conduct investigations. The primary detective in this case, Detective Gaddis, and they work as a team. She was the primary. They work together and they work in a team. You've got the robbery detail that investigates robberies. You've got the financial crimes that investigates financial crimes. You've got Metro Intelligence that generally investigates allegations and facts concerning corruption. But in this case, you've got Detective Jappy inserting himself in this murder investigation concerning Mr. Tellis. In fact, there's an email wherein Jappy implicates Tellis to Gaddis. So early on, we've got Detective Jappy, who obviously previously was directed by this old guard, now pointing the finger at Mr. Tellis to the lead detective in this homicide investigation.
Maybe some eyebrow.
During a traffic stop, and this is the significance of Mr. Tellis.
That'd be funny if he got
policy that you're to have body camera.
implicated by
All
eyebrow
civilian
hair
interactions
DNA left at the scene.
because we want to know what the truth is. We want to have
Ever heard of that
objective
happening?
record of what occurs. This initial contact with Mr. Tellis occurs on the 7th, and after he's charged and this case begins, repeated requests are made for this body cam. In fact, our judge, I was not on the case at that time, but our judge makes an order on July 18th, 2023 to turn that over. It's learned that over a month after that order is made, that evidence is destroyed.
Bum, bum, bum.
Detective Jappy is also present at the arrest and jumps into the ambulance and rides with Mr. Tellis. Now, it's anticipated that the state is going to argue to you that this suicide is somehow a consciousness of guilt. Apparently, he just couldn't live with himself for a murder that they feel that he committed. I would submit to you in the facts, the reasonable inferences to be drawn from these facts is at this point in time now, Mr. Tellis's life is coming apart. They've been in contact with him. They came into contact with him 2 times on September 7th. The first time they come, they speak to him. They say, we have warrants. He cooperates. They strip him of his clothes. They put him in a white paper suit. They've swabbed his mouth. Obviously, they're investigating him and they're coming down. I would submit to you that a reasonable inference is that there's an attempt by Mr. Tellis to kill himself, not as a difficulty, oh my gosh, I feel guilty for something they say I did, but his life was coming apart then. It truly was. He'd lost an election. He was giving him an opportunity to go back, be with his family. But now
He is not out on bond. He is still in custody.
Of which he's maintained his innocence. There's 3 surreptitious recordings that occur by the homicide detectives. And what's interesting and disturbing to note is Detective Jappy inserts himself into this interview, this surreptitious recording. Talk about another investigation. So again, we have Detective Jappy inserting himself into homicides investigation.
Come on, Jappy.
I would submit to you a reasonable inference would be that trying to dictate the direction that the homicide investigation is taking. We would submit to you that reasonable minds may disagree or could agree that losing a job is not a motive for murder. Their inference was made, and these these tweets, and it's kind of curious now, the age that we live in. I mean, we have presidents that commute via tweets. We have tweets from Mr. Tellis, an elected official, concerning the articles. Wife hears rustling in the trash.
Don't get out of your way there.
Her, honey, is there a wild animal in the trash? Me, no dear. Looks like Jeff German going through our trash for his fourth story on me. Smiley face. Oh shoot, I left a pizza box and sushi containers in the trash. In the next article, I'm going to have mob in jacuzzi ties. He's making fun of these. And then you can see the dates, June 18th and June 25th. Again, he's not particularly happy about these articles, but he's reaching out. I mean, he's lost his election. Typical bully, can't take a pound of criticism after sleeving 100 pounds of BS. Up to Article 4 now. You'd think he'd have better things to do. He's addressing these articles in the appropriate way, in a public forum. That's what elected officials, regardless if they're high-level, low-level officials, they address, as he did previously. He addresses, as you saw, the presentation, the digital presentation after he learned of the articles. He's addressing his constituency. That's what an elected official is supposed to do. That's a reasonable response to criticism, which comes from the job. Again, these articles were not a motive for a murder. And we all know killing a journalist does not kill a story. Killing Jeff German does not kill the investigation or the stories concerning Mr. Tellis. One would think the reporting is heavy on that. One can imagine what it would be for a murder. Obviously, if one's concerned about negative reporting, one doesn't want to commit a murder because obviously reporting is going to be far more severe. Mr. Tellis was a lawyer prior to this, and he was on his way back becoming a lawyer.
Welcome back,
However,
Robert.
we do have a
Welcome back to being a lawyer.
corporation losing millions of dollars as a result of his whistleblowing, which he engaged in. He was consistent. Even after he was voted out, he was communicating with Detective Jappy. He wanted to right these wrongs as he was exiting the office. There were others that had far more motive to make it look like he was the killer and to conduct this killing, because Jeff German was a good reporter. He would ultimately get to what the truth was and what was really going on in that office and with these third-party vendors. Killing an investigative journalist, there's no more follow-up information concerning these millions of dollars when the old guard is now put back into place. German's gone now. I mean, Jeff German did a good job of digging and finding things. We've all heard about him. We all know him. We all respected him. He would take on tough opponents, dangerous opponents. Jeff German was no stranger to making people upset. He made a lot of people, far more able people, far more violent people upset with him. He often had people threatening him. In fact, there was proof of it found on his devices.
Who mentioned
He was
that?
known for the boldness of his inquiries,
Yes.
taking on corrupt and violent targets through the course of his investigative journalism. It came with his job, and it's unfortunate that we no longer have him.
Stop lying to people. Whoever the guy was that wrote that article the other day, you need to fire his ass. Stop lying to people. We're coming for your ass. We are watching you motherfuckers. You better fire that son of a bitch. I'm coming down there tomorrow, motherfucker.
Jeff German received this threat shortly, months before his murder.
You guys just did some propaganda shit out about fucking just providing you fucking pieces of shit. You left-wing fucking faggot, fucking socialist, fucking dead motherfuckers. You guys will pay in the end, motherfuckers. You fucking.
Wow, someone needs to get that guy a thesaurus. Oh, goodness.
The Republic fight again, and you guys
defense, and again, that's whether we had, our founding fathers had this wisdom, the defense can't prove any of those gentlemen did this. We're not saying they did. We don't know. But there's a bigger picture. We don't know what investigative steps that all were taken to follow up on these two threats that we know of close in time to Jeff Cameron's murder. State could say this is the lunatic fringe, this is to be disregarded, but nonetheless, when you have objective fact finders, when you have people that are truly in search of
made me laugh,
the
Beth.
truth, you should investigate all avenues. Keeping the burden where it should be on the state. And at the close of this case, we are going to ask you to return a verdict of not guilty. Thank you.
Zoe, he would still have to pay it, whether that,
This time we will break
You
for
know.
lunch. During this recess, you're admonished not to discuss or communicate with anyone, including your
or
fellow
that
jurors. and
journalist was
other
alive or
jurors.
dead.
There's no included by voice, phone, email, text, internet, other means of communication, or social media. Read, watch, or listen to any news or media accounts or commentary about the case. Do any research, consult dictionaries, the internet, or reference materials. Do any investigation, test a theory, recreate any aspect of the case, or in any other way investigate or learn about the case on your own, or form or express any opinion regarding the case till it's finally submitted to you, and will be recessed till 1:30.
Thank you, all right.
1:30, which means, oh no, 50 minutes. That's true, Danielle. He was arrested for that. The kind of got swept under the rug. All right. So we'll come back at 1:30 Pacific time, but there is, who was it? Where's Colleen? Is Colleen still here or did she leave? Because she asked me about the restroom and if I ever had to change my underpants. Oh, there you are, Colleen. And the answer is no. And this, I saw this on Amazon. Wait. Oh my goodness. What is, I'm gonna have to restart my. There, can you see that? Yes, an Amazon product, and then I gotta go. So we'll reconvene. I need to restart my computer because, well, you saw the technical issues I have. But yes, here is the shirt survival kit here. Look at that. Your lifeline during shart times. The ultimate protection for when you're just not sure if a little bit came out. Shart kit includes volcanic eruption tissue pack for on-the-go confidence, extra strength shart wipes, extra moist and super durable. Shart. Ooh, you hear the Court TV music there. Clean underwear, you'll need them. So fresh and clean. Shart Attack Survivor Pin. Display your heroic feat. So there we go. There it is. There's your number one, your underwear, your Shart Attack Survivor Pin, your wipes. For, I don't know what that is, just some sort of pamphlet information, and the tissue pack. So you were asking. Yeah, well, join the club, Gal Marie. You know what? Yes. Well, then you might not be able to compete in the Olympics, Arta. I think they still only have amateur charters. So, yes, I'm just saying. But yeah, it does say that it is a white elephant gag gift, hilarious over the hill and retirement prank box. Wet wipes, tissue, sharding survival. And this, where is, let's see, where is it? Look at that. Oh yeah, look at this. Birthdays, retirement, Father's Day, white elephant, anniversaries, bar mitzvahs, you name it. When can't you get this out? Look at that. Look at the dimensions there. Oh, look at this guy. He's like, oh no. She's like, oh, Okay, so, but no, he's okay. Don't worry about him because he's got the shirt. Yes, clean underwear, right? Where was it? That was like, no, wait, there it is. Yeah, number 1 right there. Underwear. Mm-hmm. And the kit, yes, the kit includes, see that? The 4 on the second one to the bottom there. Clean underwear. You'll need them. So fresh and clean. So yes, there are underwear in there. When they go into the restroom, isn't that, don't you give gifts? You were saying like you exchange gifts. This would be timely when you're in the restroom. The button says he's a survivor. What does it say? Shart attack survivor. Here, you'll see this guy. Shart without fear. The Shart survival kit is here. Self-respect restored. See, look at that grin on that guy's face right there. You see, Shart attack survivor. Look at that. He's got that. He's proudly displaying his Shart attack survivor pin, like a little, universal symbol for a person there with a little puff of smoke or flatulence coming out. Look how happy he is. See, to know he survived, how happy and proud he is. So, well, yes, we should all be happy to survive Sharts. So, I'll tell you what. I think you should start one if there isn't. Okay, yeah, we're not getting into the complicated plumbing there. Let me mute that smooth jazz here from the feed. All right, yeah, no, yeah, I won't talk about your plumbing there. But yes, and 26 reviews. That's always, oh, look, see, we do have reviews with images. Hilarious gag gift. Only 4 stars, though. Vine customer review of free product. I laughed as hard ordering this as the person receiving it did. Hilarious, especially when given unexpectedly or to someone who has recently experienced the embarrassment of a shart. Of course, it is a gag, and the products aren't truly mean or to be used. Or are they? I don't know. The kit includes dry tissue, wet wipes, and disposable underwear. These underwear are papery and like the hair caps they put on you when you're going back for surgery. Very thin and easy to tear. Not going to work for anyone over 180 or so pounds. Of course, I really don't believe they are meant to be used, but I know someone here is going to ask what size they are. I only gave 4 stars because I feel the price point is a little high. I know that you pay for novelty, not the products per se, but I feel it's more appropriate. Yeah, okay. So, yes, there's look at that all out there. Oh, wow, look, she's even modeling the disposable underwear. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my. Okay, I think that's a sign of the apocalypse is near. Okay. Oh, here we go. Another 4-star review. A bit expensive, but it's a good, hilarious gag gift. I got one for Secret Santa gift exchange. I saw what you did there. I am not watching that. I don't know what channel that's on, but I'm not watching Shark Week. So there you go. I don't know. Nikki, oh, here we go. Nikki gave it 5 stars. Everything there out of the box. All right, there's no 1-star reviews. I think the lowest this gets is a watching the person open it was great. Got this as a gag gift for my brother-in-law for his 50th. Many all around. All right. It's a real kit, practical and funny. This guy, great gift for teens. A bit overpriced, but awesome. Hilariously awesome. So there you have it. There you go. So yes, Colleen, since we got, how did we get, oh yes, we got on the subject of urinals and bathrooms because of my experience urinating one stall away from O.J. Simpson. I do remember that now. So there you go. I need to reboot, so I'm going to start another stream, and we will be back here in 40 minutes at least for sure to restart the stream. So yeah, it's coming to TMZ or whoever would make such a story of us in the men's room, not looking properly spaced apart. It's just, I don't know, it's not that juicy of a story, I'm afraid. But anyway, I do need to reboot, so I will see you guys soon. Hopefully you all come back. I know the timing is kind of rough there for the East Coast people, but hey, who made sacrifices for the Black Swan? Who got up, huh? Start streaming at 6 o'clock. This guy. So hopefully we'll see you back here soon. So bye, and we'll see you back here for First Witnesses, I guess.